So this is going to be financial support excluding NSF. Because Colleen Fitzgerald, who some of you may know, is going to come and talk to us during lunch about NSF and NEH also. Okay. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with a lot of these organizations, but I just wanted to sort of run through them quickly, and then the slides will be made available. We're going to have all of the slides from today up on the LSA website, so you can go back, you can find the URLs, you can go on the web and look at things. ANA gives large grants, 12, 24, 36, and 60-month durations, average award $230,000. Somebody mentioned having an ANA grant. I can't remember who it was. Oh, was it? A couple people did. Yeah. So that's a very important source. And on their website it says it provides opportunities to assess, plan, develop, and implement projects to ensure the survival and continuing vitality of native languages. And then they've got an Esther Martinez immersion special initiative, which provides funding to support 3-year projects being implemented by Native American language nests, survival schools, and restoration programs. So that's also a very important source. There's the Endangered Languages Documentation Program, and you can tell that it's out of England since it's spelled program with 2 M's and an E. They do what they call small grants, which looks pretty big to me, but that's just my perspective from ELF. 10,000 pounds maximum for a year. They do individual graduate scholarships. They do postdoctoral fellowships. That's for after someone gets a PhD. And then they have grants for major documentation projects. And now if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not going to get a PhD, so that's not relevant to me. Remember that if you can get someone working with you, if you can form a partnership with a linguist, you might find a linguist who's getting a PhD. They maybe could get one of these grants, and then it could go for your project. So it could be relevant to you. Now here's, of course, near and dear to my heart, Endangered Language Fund, ELF, and that's the program that I'm the president of right now. We have 2 programs. One's called Language Legacies, and they're 1-year grants. They're very small. They average $2,500, but they have been very useful. We've done an amazing number of wonderful projects with them. And I should mention, I have to advertise, we have a poster session starting at 5:30, from 5:30 till 7 today, and it's 20 years of ELF. So there are going to be several of the projects are going to be featured. People who've had ELF funding are going to be have posters about their projects. There's also the Native Voices Endowment. This is restricted to members of the Native American tribes that came in contact with the Lewis and Clark expedition between 1803 and 1806. It's very, very specific. The reason it's so specific is that it was funded with the proceeds from, they had a 200-year anniversary, and the U.S. Mint sold a coin. And so the profits were split between a language group and an environmental group. And so that's what funds the Native Voices Endowment, but it's restricted to those tribes. And on the website, there's a list of the tribes and the languages that are eligible. Also, I have printed out a couple of lists if anybody's interested. Those can be 1- to 3-year grants, and they can go from $2,500 to $10,000 a year. There's the Phillips Fund for Native American Research. This one is a little bit more aimed at academics, but again, if you've got your linguist partner, maybe they can do this. It's through the American Philosophical Society. They say they prefer to support the work of younger scholars who have received the doctorate. Average award is $3,200. Grants can't exceed $3,500, and they're for 1-year duration. So again, another source of a small grant for one nice small project, and those are very good grants. Yeah. They say younger scholars, so I don't know. Oh, I see what you're asking. I think they mean early career. I think they probably mean early career. I think yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Jacobs Research Funds is more for Pacific Northwest. individual grants of $3,000, a group grant of $6,000, or a Kincaid grant of $9,000. And priority is given to research on endangered cultures and languages and to research on the Pacific Northwest. But I will mention that when I was a graduate student and I did some work on Karuk, on Susan's language, I actually had a Jacobs Fund grant. So that's in California. So obviously they reach down into California a bit too. There's also the confusingly named Foundation for Endangered Languages, which often gets confused with the Endangered Languages Fund. I looked on their website. You have to join. So you have to be a member to apply for their grants, and it does cost money to be a member. So I didn't think this was the best model, but I thought I might as well put it up there. And they're $1,000 maximum grants, so also very small. I wanted to also mention workshops, and some of you have obviously participated in some of these. COLANG, which is the Institute on Collaborative Language Research, which somebody mentioned earlier, Susan mentioned, I think, yeah. They do have scholarships, and it's held every 2 years in the summer, and I highly recommend it. I went to the one in 2014. I was an instructor, and I went to a bunch of classes, and it was just wonderful. It was really sort of life-changing. So the next one is summer 2018 in Gainesville, Florida. And I definitely recommend looking into that if you're interested. And then also the National Breath of Life Archival Institute for Indigenous Languages. They will also have scholarships. And the next one, this is the national one, is held in Washington, D.C. And what they do, excuse me, is they bring people through the various archives, the Smithsonian archives, the National Anthropological Archives, all of those materials, and they make those accessible to people. And they also help you to interpret what you're looking at, because sometimes the materials are extremely difficult to understand. So that's another one that I highly recommend. And then I just wanted to add a couple of useful sites for more funding options. RNLD, I always forget what that stands for. Resource Network, does anybody remember? For Linguistic Diversity, thank you. They have a list of grants, and it's divided into countries, and so they have one for United States grants. I found this Elizabeth Bogal Albritton list of language grants. ELF, our website, our extremely old, funky, not very nice website, which will soon be replaced. We do have a list of resources which hasn't been updated for a while, but it has some. And then ALD has, they have a project list of, there was an ALD project, and that project has a list of funding sources. And finally, I just wanted to mention that libraries and historical societies and archives sometimes have funding that can help defray costs associated with using their materials. So if you're going to be, if you find out that there are a bunch of materials on your language in such and such an archive, look into whether they have any funding to help you get there, help you use them, help you do whatever it is that you need to do with them. So, is there anything? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people in this room can add a lot to this.
Two additions. One is that the Smithsonian has that kind of funding that you mentioned to come and use their archives, and they have a funding stream specifically for Native communities. And then they have, there's Recovering Voices also has a project specifically to fund community-initiated cultural or linguistic revitalization projects that use their resources.
So if people search for Recovering Voices, they will find that?
And there should be, I imagine their website also has links to other funding within the Smithsonian and elsewhere. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, I don't think this is really online yet, but there's a major new funding source for language revitalization. Somebody in this room may know more about it than me, but it's being administered through the MICA Foundation, and it's funding that's come from railway right-of-way something. There's like some fund that you don't know about it.
It has, yeah. It's one of the tribes that are impacted by like, I think it's 27.
No, it will,
It was a
I don't know if
really,
it's
it was a restricted
is it
group.
restricted? Okay, so, but they are going to have like large pots of money, so they'll be doing more major funding, kind of A&A level funding. And that I think is in sort of the stages, they're almost ready to start releasing their calls for proposals.
That's
So
really exciting.
keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah.
Some states that have humanities organizations that may or may not be federally funded, some are state funded, and those have been the source for some local documentation and even teaching projects. You might ask further. Minnesota is lucky that the people of Minnesota voted themselves a limited sales tax for arts, cultural heritage, and fishing. And
Very
that's a
progressive.
major source of funding for language programs in Minnesota.
Fantastic.
Something like that. I'll see where you think your legislature start looking at it. Well, this was voted by the people, not the legislature, so they don't control the funds.
That's great. That's great, yeah.
Well, all right, so let me tell you what our next exciting activities are. Lunch. Yeah, so we're going to have lunch, and I think it will be outside just like breakfast was. But please come back in here with your lunch, and then Colleen Fitzgerald is going to be here, and she's going to talk about NSF and NEH funding, and you may have heard of the DEL project, Documenting Endangered Languages. And so she will talk to us over lunch about those. Okay, thanks very much, you guys.